2015 was such a roller coaster of a year for WWE, it's a wonder Ronan Keating didn't show up and tell them to ride it. WrestleMania 31 was a big success, but the Royal Rumble was one of the worst received in history. Seth Rollins came into his own as WWE Champion, only to have his reign end in unfortunate fashion via injury. And then, of course, there was the continued effort to get Roman Reigns over, which is an entire saga in and of itself. It's important to remember, though, that amongst the madness, there was plenty of great wrestling going on. So important, in fact, that we've made this special list just for you. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best WWE matches of 2015. Join us. Number 10, Seth Rollins versus John Cena at SummerSlam. Right, so this is ridiculous. We put this very same match on our list of worst WWE matches of 2015, due entirely to the absolute farce that was the ending. However, after attending several therapy sessions and reviewing the match over, I've concluded that the action that preceded the finish was so good that we simply can't leave it off. WWE Champion Seth Rollins was defending his title against United States Champion John Cena, whose belt was also on the line. Big Match John had recently undergone something of a career makeover thanks to his US Open challenges on Raw, and the Architect was finally given the go-ahead to wrestle to the best of his abilities in one of his title defenses. Rollins and Cena worked perfectly together, complementing each other beautifully in a match with the highest of stakes. This was easily one of Cena's best matches in years, and the first real sign that this Seth kid might just be something special. And then Jon Stewart happened. Going to therapy has helped me mellow on the ludicrous scene, which saw the Daily Show host inexplicably turn on Cena by belting him with a chair, allowing Rollins to capitalize with a pedigree and claim both titles. Mellowed, yes, but by no means forgiven. Number 9, Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose at Money in the Bank. After a screwy finish cost him the WWE Championship at Elimination Chamber, Dean Ambrose once again stepped up to challenge his old friend Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. Since there were a bunch of ladders lying around anyway, they decided to use those in their match. Rollins and Ambrose were a great fit for one another, as they had been the ones to feud with each other after the breakup of the Shield, whilst Roman Reigns was busy not giving a crap. That intensity was present in this title match, as the two former fellow Hounds of Justice put on one hell of a show. There was plenty of great grappling between these two talented tusslers, as well as some good old-fashioned hardcore bashing. Ambrose delivered a dirty deeds to Rollins onto the announce table, which somehow didn't turn that blonde streak in his hair blood red. The finish was pretty ruddy great too, as both men got one hand on the title belt and desperately tried to pull it down. They both fell to the ground, taking the championship with them, but Rollins had just managed to hang on to retain by the skin of his teeth. Number 8, Kevin Owens versus Finn Balor at the Beast in the East. We're not counting any NXT matches on this list, as the developmental brand was still very much its own thing at this point, but luckily for us, this match for their top title took place on a main roster production. The Beast in the East was a special network event hosted in Japan, getting its name from the fact that Brock Lesnar was on the card. It sadly had nothing to do with Bam Bam Bigelow. In amongst some very inconsequential matches, Kevin Owens defended his NXT championship against Finn Balor, who was returning to the country where he had made his name for the first time since signing with WWE. The two men went back and forth in classic NXT style, showing off their full range of talents before the Demon King Balor hit a brutal coup de grace to pin KO and begin his reign as the King of NXT in style. Owens vs. Balor was miles ahead of everything else on this glorified house show, which also played host to a match between Cesaro and Diego of Los Matadores. Anyone have any idea why those two are fighting? No? Great, let's move on. Number 7, Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan at Fastlane. At the 2015 Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns won the titular match to a huge ovation from the Philadelphia crowd, who definitely didn't boo him so loudly he can probably still hear them every time he goes to sleep. That nasty authority lot then goaded the big dog into putting his WrestleMania title shot on the line at Fastlane. His opponent? The recently returned Daniel Bryan, who the fans definitely didn't want to win the Rumble instead of Reigns. Despite the alignments being the complete opposite of what WWE wished for, Reigns and Bryan put on a belter of a main event at this inaugural show. They were given plenty of time to show off their best stuff and had great chemistry together, as Bryan's speed and experience served as the perfect perfect foil to Roman's explosive power. After becoming the first person to kick out of Bryan's running knee finisher, Reigns delivered a crunching spear and booked his ticket to Mania 31. With the power of hindsight, it's easy to see that Reigns played a huge part in making this match a success, even if he was as popular as Anthrax at the time. Number 6, The New Day versus the Usos versus the Lucha Dragons at TLC. When the New Day won their first set of tag team titles, they were detested heels, annoying self-righteous parodies of enthusiastic self-help gurus with religious undertones. As the year wore on though, fans got wise to the genius of this act, and by the end of the year, they were getting some of the loudest cheers out of anybody on the roster. It helped that they were having great matches, like this one from TLC, a triple threat ladder match for the WWE Tag Team Championships, with Big E and Kofi Kingston defending the Big Pennies against Kalisto and Sin Cara of the Lucha Dragons, and perennial rivals Jimmy and Jey Uso. Harking back to the TLC matches of old, these three teams laid it all on the line for the belts, pulling off some spectacular spots in the process. This match is rightly remembered for Kalisto's insane Salida del Sol to Jey from the top of a ladder, but there were plenty more thrills and spills outside of this. In the end, Xavier Woods assisted his teammates to help them retain the gold, as all 6 men then hopefully enjoyed some well-earned rest. And maybe some ice packs too. Number 5, the Intercontinental Championship ladder match at WrestleMania 31. If 6 fellas risking life and limb in a ladder match isn't enough for you, then fear not, because this ladder match has 7 fellas doing it. WrestleMania 31 opened with Bad News Barrett defending his Intercontinental Championship against the men who had been making his life a living hell over the last few months. Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan, Luke Harper, R-Truth, and Cody going through his Stardust phase Rhodes all joined Barrett in the fray, and to call this match chaotic would be a disservice to the very concept of chaos. Bodies flew everywhere, ladders flew everywhere, this was complete mayhem and it was all glorious. To recap this match would simply be to list a load of spots and OMG moments, but let's just say it reminded everybody why Money in the Bank had been so sorely missed from the WrestleMania card over the past 5 years. Ambrose getting slammed through a ladder by Harper was a particular highlight. After everyone else wiped themselves out, Daniel Bryan got the win to open this Mania as he had closed the last one, as a champion. Number 4, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31. The main event of WrestleMania 31 was one of the most anticipated in years, but not for the reasons those in charge would have liked. Basically, everybody was terrified that WWE were going to book Roman Reigns to beat Brock Lesnar, despite the former being so underdone that he was basically a blue piece of steak. Just when it looked like this was going to be the case, the company pulled the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Seth Rollins used his Money in the Bank briefcase to force his way into the match towards its end, ultimately stealing the title by pinning Reigns to thunderous applause. This last-minute twist created what to some is the greatest ending to a WrestleMania of all time, but it's not like the wrestling before this hadn't been any good. Reigns and Lesnar had great chemistry together, and the two of them wrestling at full pelt might have been more fun to watch had the crowd not been permanently stuck in boo mode. Seth's inclusion only added to the drama and prevented what was one of the better Manias in history from ending on the bummest of bum notes. Number 3, Kevin Owens versus John Cena at Elimination Chamber. Another reason for the change in public opinion on John Cena in 2015 was his rivalry with Kevin Owens. The brash Canadian had been called up to the main roster while still NXT champion and verbally ran Cena down on Raw. After laying out the face that ran the place, the match was on for Elimination Chamber. Cena versus Owens, champ versus champ, apple pie versus maple syrup? These two had so much chemistry, it's a wonder they didn't just start making out in the middle of the ring. It helped that the action was anchored by such a great story, the arrogant but talented rookie stepping up to the respected veteran. But what really tips this match over the edge is the result. Owens countered a clothesline to drill his opponent with a pop-up powerbomb, which led to a clean pinfall loss for John Cena. Do you know how rare those were in 2015? You'd have better luck finding a dodo drumstick in your bargain bucket. Owens had arrived on the main roster and arrived in a big way, whereas the Super Cena of old was beginning to fade away. Number 2, Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker at Hell in a Cell. SummerSlam 2015 was the night of great wrestling with bad finishes. As well as the Cena-Rollins match, there was also the main event, which saw The Undertaker beat Brock Lesnar after a finish so screwy even Dusty Rhodes would have been like, "Bit much that, baby." This set the stage for one final showdown between the Deadman and the Streak Breaker, a rematch of their brutal Hell in a Cell encounter from 13 years prior. They had a lot to live up to, but they absolutely smashed it. Lesnar and Taker felt like they legitimately wanted to rip each other's heads off, which led to one of the most appropriate feeling cell matches in years. They showed no mercy to each other inside the demonic cube. There was blood, there were exposed ring boards, even one of the doctors got assaulted. Quick, somebody call the doctor. After this hard-fought war, Lesnar sealed the deal to emphatically bring this rivalry to a close. These beasts of men had just delivered a true Hell in a Cell classic. Number 1, Brock Lesnar versus John Cena versus Seth Rollins at Royal Rumble. WWE needn't have bothered with any other shows after January of 2015 because their match of the year took place at the very first pay-per-view on the calendar. Brock Lesnar put his WWE Championship on the line against two very different opponents. There was John Cena, the respected legend whom he had taken the title from in the first place, and there was Seth Rollins, the sniveling up-and-comer who had wormed his way into the match through politics. This dynamic set the stage for quite the brawl, and the three gladiators involved did not disappoint. There were plenty of twists and turns as Lesnar's early dominance was broken when Cena and Rollins teamed up to take him out, only to then start fighting with each other. The action was just non-stop mile-a-minute stuff as each man came within fingertips of the gold before Lesnar executed a match-winning F5 on the Authority's Golden Boy. This match is still looked back on fondly today, with some calling it the greatest triple threat in WWE history. Your opinion on that may vary, but even my granny would say that this was something special. She's an idiot.